Yep, we're gonna discuss episode 3 of Dune Prophecy. We're the Winter Hill Warriors, and this was an interesting episode. We kind of get Valya's whole backstory along with Tula. Damon, any thoughts before we start getting into the scene by scene breakdown?
I really like the way that we departed from all the political goings on and the feud that we saw with the Carinos then siding with Desmond Hart. Now we just get that straight up zoom in type of episode for some background information. I think the title Sisterhood Above All does it pretty good justice.
Yeah, yeah. So title Sisterhood Above All. Give me a second. What the hell? Edit. Just gotta make sure that this doesn't go off. Okay, cool. Here we are. All right, so we open up the episode, and this is right after what's her face, Valia basically tried to use her magic powers on Desmond Hart, and he was just like, "Nah, fuck that." And so she's panicking, and she grabs Theodosia. She's like, "Yeah, we got to get the fuck out of here immediately. We got to just talk to the rest of our truthsayers in the great houses and just make sure that we protect our power, essentially." So Theodosia's kind of just like, what the hell is going on? What about the Emperor? What about Carino? I thought we are here to serve him. And Valia tells her, yeah, we're banned from the castle. This is not the first time, or banned from the palace, but this ain't the first time that this has happened. So we know that Valia now is in scramble mode. Then we get a flashback to now. What's interesting is in the Dune movies, Damon, the home planet of the Harkonnen house is what? It's Gidi Prime, right? Gidi Prime.
Yeah, so they have Getty Prime as like their location after the family gets back into the good graces of the Imperium. So picture this as like their timeout. This is the only place they control right now because of what they pulled supposedly during the Butlerian Jihad.
Okay, so this one is called Lankaville, whatever. But this is the homeworld of the Harkonnen house right now. It's absolutely brutal. It's just winter the entire time, and the only sustenance seems to be these whales with fur. So they're just doing a lot of whaling, and then we see young Valia at this time. She kind of brings some meat back to her family. Um, Now we see Tula there at the table, but they also have an older brother. His name is Griffin. And then give me a second. I think the parents' names are Virgil and Sonia. So we get
Yep.
Valia's parents, but we also get her uncle there as well. So the whole family is just kind of chilling in this little in this house. And I guess Griffin is going to Zemia. We're not sure what he's doing there yet. But or I guess he's doing some like trade deal negotiation stuff. So
Hmm.
this fat old guy is the father, and the family seems pretty peaceful as a whole. In fact, the biggest savage is really just Valia. So Valia is pissed that her family and the Harkonnen name has been slandered by the Atreides family. There a is Vorian Atreides leading the Atreides family right now?
Yeah, he is like the late stage ruler of the crew. So he's a pretty old dude now, but he's still calling the shots, I think.
Okay, sweet. So he is not the one who has, according to Valia, made up the lie that has disgraced the Harkonnen family. Basically, one of Vorian's ancestors said that the Harkonnens were traitors in the war against the machines, but the Harkonnen family and the Harkonnen house knows that that's not true, but it doesn't matter because the rest of the great houses believe this. And Vorian, although he's not the one who has made up that lie, he is running with it as well. So he's just kind of he's moving around the capital doing whatever he wants, and the Harkonnens have been disgraced. So Valia is not happy with this status quo. She wants to find Vorian and just tell him what happened. Tell him it's all a misunderstanding, so that they can get their standing back in the Imperium. And now I'm curious, Damon. Is Valia's family, are they running the Harkonnens? Are they leading House Harkonnen?
So right now, the leader of House Harkonnen is technically their uncle. So that's why
Evgeny,
Evgeny, the big dude,
Evgeny.
played by Mark Addy, Robert Baratheon from Game of Thrones. Shout out for that character. Let's hope this guy meets a better fate. But he looks like he's calling the shots right now, and based on the end of the episode, I think that he's still in pole position. Though it doesn't look like much because they've basically been subjugated to this ice desert of a planet.
Okay, so this dude on the screen right now, the younger guy, that's actually the dad, or is that the uncle?
Uh,
I think
the
that's the uncle.
The uncle is the dude with the beard who's chubby, Mark
Okay,
Addy.
okay, okay, that makes sense. Okay, so the dad is the okay, that makes more sense. So
Yeah, the
dad's a little
dad is like
younger.
the soft-spoken dude with the shaggy hair.
Okay, all right, I got that wrong earlier. So Valya's fucking pissed, and she's just like, "Yo, we gotta restore our honor." And her uncle is just like, "Listen, you gotta let this go. It's just not worth it at this point. You gotta just fucking relax, basically." And Valya's like, "I will not, I will not relax at all." So she kind of storms out, and the rest of the family, especially her mom, they're really just like, she's a crazy person, and like, let's not bother with her. But we see that her brother Griffin genuinely cares about her, and he goes and checks on her, and Griffin is just like, no, I'm on your side, Valya. The rest of our family, they're basically soft. They're fine with just getting mistreated. Not us though. And if what you think is I gotta go find Vori and Atreides and set the record straight, then I'm gonna do it. So even though I think Griffin is older than Valya, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So even though Griffin is older than Valya, Valya is the leader of the siblings. And then Griffin brings up a story where way back he fell into the ice and his muscles seized up the moment he fell, and he wasn't able to swim. And then Valya saved him using using the voice, right? But she doesn't really even know that she has that power yet. But basically, in Griffin's head, he heard her voice commanding him to swim, and he was just able to swim and get himself to safety. So Griffin is all in. He fully supports his sister. He's down for the cause, and but then he gets rewarded with death. So it's implied that he went to go find Vori and Atreides, and he was murdered. And we see the funeral happen and go down, and everyone is depressed, but Valya is just beside herself, and she is just like, I don't want to fucking mourn again. We know that Vorian murdered Griffin. Vorian has disappeared again. We have to get revenge. The Atreides they have to suffer the way that we're suffering. And Tula is a little bit more soft-spoken. She's telling Valya, look, you got to chill. We got to break this cycle of revenge. Griffin himself wouldn't want that to happen. And Valya says, fuck that. Whatever path you choose, just don't stay on this shit planet. And her goal is to, I think, go to the sisterhood, right? So at this point, she's about to dip for the sisterhood at Wallach 9. And that is the flashback scene to a little bit more on Valya's backstory and just her family life. What were your thoughts on all of that?
I mean, I like these flashback episodes because you get the seeds of the character planted early on, and you can see how they get from point A to point B. Tula being the compassionate one, Valia being the ruthless one. The mom even calls her a wolf at one point, which seems like a compliment, but it's definitely not. That's a for sure insult based on the ambition, the voracious climbing that she wants to do. She hates the fact that the family has been reduced to basically being glorified fishermen and traders in a sense. Like all they're doing is trading the whales and the fur. So she wants to be back in the graces of the Imperium where they actually have some influence, their rightful influence. And you get the seeds of the episode planted as well from like a theme sense, right? It's all about family. It's all about who do you side with, who are you sticking with, who are you loyal to, who are you willing to sacrifice. Is super interesting, especially when the sisterhood comes into play
Yeah,
later
yeah,
on.
yeah. It is interesting that the three siblings are all fucking pretty tight at this point. So,
Yeah.
all right, we then jump to present day, and we're still on Seleucus Secundus, and we see that Valya has called all the Trussayers that she has at the other great houses for a meeting, and she's just talking to them and basically saying like, look, we're under siege right now. There's this motherfucker named Desmond Hart who claims that he was swallowed by Shai Hulud and he survived and he's got all these powers now. and he is able to resist the voice. So that is very, very terrifying, and all of the Truthsayers are concerned, but they remain loyal to Valia, and they tell her, look, just let us know what we want to do. Now, this Truthsayer right here on the screen, is this one of her childhood friends when it was just her and Kasha? Because it was like when Valia was younger, she had Kasha, so we saw like the younger Asian girl, and then we saw like an Indian girl. Is this her basically as an adult?
I'm not sure, but your guess is as good as any.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't
So
quite tell.
this Truthsayer is like, look, we like just let us know what you want to do. We're loyal to you. We're loyal to the sisterhood. Let's fight this evil in our eyes, right? So Valia says, look, just go home to your home houses, home planets, return to your nobles, and just fight against any attempts to sow further mistrust. And meanwhile, I will remain on the planet Carino and try to just keep our hold here. So Theodosia is observing all this, just being like, what the fuck? So then Valia meets with Michaela, right? And Michaela delivers a message from Tula about Sister Lila, and Sister Lila is trapped. She's not technically dead right now, but she's as good as dead, right? Like she's trapped in her own dreams, right? Her own visions with her ancestors. So that's not good news for Valia. But the silver lining is she did manage to reach Raquella, and Raquella spoke to her and said that the key to the reckoning was once, twice born, once in blood, once in spice. That implies that it's Desmond Hart, because he was born regularly as a human and then also should have died, but then was reborn when the worm swallowed him in spice. So Michaela's like, well, what are you going to do? And Valia's got to cook up a plan. And she goes, look, maybe I got to return to home. Now, at the time, I thought she was talking about Wallach 9, but we learned later on that it is not Wallach 9. So I'm going to pause there before we actually jump to Wallach 9, if you have any thoughts on just Valia doing a little bit of scheming.
Yeah, you even know from the start of the episode where you have the gate shutting on her. Basically, as soon as she crosses the threshold of leaving the palace, her influence, having dealt with like a soldier before, like basically she's just got to make her way back up and like kind of worm her way back in, which is sort of a specialty of what the Bene Gesserit becoming. Right? One of the quotes that she uses earlier in the episode is that the Lankavel is a place to stay if you want to rot. Like if you just kind of want to stay where you are. If our family never wants any influence again, this is somebody who never takes anything lying down. Like she's an ultimate fighter and a warrior. I think she's kind of a scumbag in a lot of situations, but it's almost like she's doing it interesting.
Yeah, she is absolutely a scumbag, but she's very capable at the same time. So now we jump back to Wallach 9, and we see Tula. She's fucking devastated. Lila's basically in this vegetative state, right? So it's Tula, and then what's this mother's name? Avia, right? So I think Avia is sort of Valia's spy. So Avia is just telling Tula, look, we know the deal. If you don't make it through the agony, then we have to put you out of your misery and basically kill you, right? And so far in the history of the sisterhood, there hasn't been a single child who has returned from whatever limbo that Lila is in. And so Tula's just like, listen, I'll take care of this shit when I decide to. You don't fucking touch her, and get the fuck out of my face. And then she sips some of this spiced tea, and she's just very sad. And Lila was a daughter to her. And then we actually see that she drops, or she finds, right, this this like little tooth that her brother Griffin had given her way back in the day. So just a quick little scene there. Do you want to make any comments on this, or am I good to jump back to the next scene?
Just one quick analogy from my childhood. Sister Avia is like the old assistant coach on the basketball team, and you're just like, well, I'm not really sure like what her job is, but then that's just kind of what she's doing here. She's pretty much Volya's surrogate to kind of keep things in check. But I like her development in this
assistant coach is making all
episode.
the rotations and lineup decisions. All right. Now we jump to the next scene. This is now another flashback. So this occurs after Griffin has been allegedly murdered by Vorian. And we actually see Tula, and I believe now, just for the sake of this recap, we're gonna act as if we don't know what planet she's on right now, right? Because it gets revealed at the very end. But as we're watching this episode, we don't know what planet she's on. So the planet that she's on, though, has a lot of vegetation, and she's been chilling with this handsome young boy named Ori. And they're kind of doing a little bit of hunting. They're getting ready for a feast, and they're ahead of the rest of the pack. So Ori's like, yeah, maybe we can maybe we can smash before the rest of my family gets here. But either way, they're out celebrating their yearly hunt. It's this tradition, and we see that Tula now is basically the daughter that's joining this family. So there's that. And Ori is, he genuinely loves Tula, and he's just completely mesmerized by her. And Tula is a little bit standoffish. She cares about Ori, but there's something going on there. And then we see the rest of the family. The rest of Ori's family has caught up, and they're kind of all setting up camp, getting ready for this giant feast. So they have to go, obviously, gut whatever animals that they hunt and kill. And one of Ori's family members asked Tula, "Hey, how'd you meet Ori?" And Tula says, "Yeah, he struck up a conversation at the marketplace, and I guess we're still talking." And they asked, "Look, has Ori met your family yet?" And she goes, not really. Hold on, give me a second. Yes, my mouse was dying, but she's like, there's barely any of my family left, right? So she's being very sketchy with her family. Then we see this young boy. We don't know his name, Damon, but he's also part of this, part of Ori's family, and he is played by, he also plays, what's his name in House of the Dragon, the Tully boy.
Young Oscar Tully.
So fucking Oscar Tully. Well, that's not his name in this, but he pulls up and he's this young boy. And Tula kind of takes him under her wing and shows him how to gut animals and tells him a little bit about the bulls that they're hunting, and just stuff like that. So it's just and she also mentions that there's a toxin in the bull that is powerful enough to kill a person. So it's not always something you see from the outside. So she's kind of just spinning a little bit of game to this young kid right now and just showing him the ropes. And he's kind of wondering, like, how does she know all this shit, right? How the fuck does she know all this shit? Then we hear a little bit of commotion, and we look, and Ori's horse has broken his leg. So they have no choice but to kill the horse. But before they do, Tula actually sprints over and grabs or gets some of the poison from the bull, right, from that little gland in the body of the bull, and puts the horse out humanely, and it's an easier death. And that's that. So then she gives she gives Ori a hug. So what did you think about that flashback scene to Tula having a little fling with this young man?
I think that it is, again, we'll get more into this as we get to know more names and everything of that kind of idea. But even from watching her interact with the family of this young man, it feels as though she is an outsider. Like that dude who asked her how they met, his eyes linger on her like a bit too long, almost like he's just a quote that really stood out to me is when she's talking to Albert, and she basically comes with the, true strength isn't always something you see from the outside, which I think is really indicative of who Tula is. Good to see. I believe his name is Archie Barnes, who played Oscar Tully. This kid's got a real future, man. I like it. But I think Tula's solution with the gland from the bull, just kind of maneuvering, kind of like how she's trying to be with Lila in the present, if that makes sense. It's a parallel.
I do like that. Also, side note, this entire time I've been grappling with whether I should order Uber Eats tonight, and I'm gonna fucking fold. I'm gonna order Uber Eats, and I'm gonna get fried chicken.
Gonna win, man.
Now we jump back to actually no. This is a continued flashback. This is now Volya on Wallach 9. So we know that after Griffin was allegedly murdered, right? Because we don't know. We don't actually know if he's murdered, right? We just see that he's dead. And after that, basically, Volya's parents were like, "All right, you can't stay here anymore. You're psychotic at this point." So they send her to Wallach 9, but she's also not upset at being on Wallach 9 because she also wants to study from the sisterhood. So we actually see this is before Volya has murdered Dorothea. So Dorothea at this point is kind of running the show. Volya is just one of her students. The conversation they have here, Damon, basically boils down to Dorothea wanting to pursue truth, right? Like wanting to spread truth and be good, and Volya being more on the Machiavellian side of things, right? Saying, well, sometimes, you got to withhold the truth and kind of massage the truth for the greater good, right? For the greater good to influence and manipulate things in a way that we want, right? So that's kind of the conversations that they have. This is almost, if you're a Harry Potter fan, this is almost like Gryffindor, which Dorothea is on, versus Slytherin, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a really strong comparison,
So
actually.
Dorothea is basically like she can sense that Volya is gonna be a problem, and this probably isn't the first time that Volya has had an outburst, and maybe not an outburst, but has spoken out against Dorothea and what she's preaching, which is peace and truth and good, right? Volya is like, yo, how about some of this black magic? And the rest of the sisters are kind of looking at her, being like, she's kind of crazy. And Dorothea kind of says some fucked up shit to her, right? She goes, humble yourself and commit to the sisterhood, or resign yourself to an unremarkable life on a backwater planet. Now, she's talking to all of the sisters, basically saying, you guys have your test tomorrow. If you don't pass your test, then we can't put you on, one of the great houses as a truth sayer because you're not good enough. But she's kind of directing it really at Volya. And then later on that night, we see Volya with young Kasha, and then this other girl who's her friend, and they're kind of just talking, and they're like, Dorothea had no right to speak to you that way. All of these things, blah blah blah. And then they mention Mother Raquel as well, and the gossip floating around the sisterhood is who is going to be next in line, right? Who is going to be next in line, and the consensus is that it's going to be Dorothea, but nobody really knows, and that's that. And Volya kind of tells her friends a little bit about her brother Griffin, and says that he was murdered when he went to Landsrad. So is Landsrad another planet, Damon? I'm so not tapped into the Dune lore, so excuse me if I sound like a fucking dumb fuck.
So from what I interpret, the Landsrat was sort of like I see it as like the executive government, like the spot where everybody negotiates and comes together. Picture it as like the White House plus like Congress combined, if that makes sense.
Okay, got it. So yeah, that's that. That's just basically the entirety of the seed. Volya does reveal to her friends that her parents, or she says she originally wanted to come to Wallach 9 to study with the sisterhood, but then after Griffin was dead. Oh, okay. So actually, we find out she was going to be Griffin's truth sayer. So that's why she was going to come to Wallach 9 to study. But then after he was murdered, she just didn't care anymore for obvious reasons. But her parents were still just like, yeah, you can't stay in Lankerville anymore. You got to come. And then her friends ask her what she wants, and she doesn't answer. We know she wants revenge. Any thoughts on just kind of that flashback scene with Dorothea and Valya and young Kasha and the rest of her gang?
Yeah, super important to me because, like you said, Dorothea pretty much just calls Valia trash in front of everybody, and the whole message of the episode, right, is you've got to fulfill who you can be to achieve destiny, but it's going to end up in a better future, but you can't be too tightly aligned to like this is where I grew up, this is who I'm with right now. It's got to be like for the sisterhood, and you see a huge contrast because Dorothea is the goody goody. She is gene wise next in line to ascend, but she's nowhere near as powerful. We know that Valia is, where Valia has zero pedigree to be performing well here, yet she has the talent, and she's learning in every scene that we see how much more important the sisterhood is to her future.
Yes, yes, yes. Well said there. Then we jump to you're gonna have to explain a little bit of this scene to me because I was my ass was a little bit confused. But we jump to this like the test scene, right? So we see all of the young acolytes outside, and Dorothea basically tells them like if you can devote your life and put the sisterhood above all, even your families, and if you could truly say to yourself that the answer is yes, then you can go inside. But if not, then you have to meditate on whether you belong here or not. So it's kind of one of those things where it's Scout's honor, right? Because you could theoretically just be like, oh yeah, I pledge my shit to the sisterhood. They just go inside and take a shower and like eat some food.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
The easiest.
it's right, exactly. You could easily just lie. So it does depend on the sisters being truthful to themselves. So then we get this montage where it's fucking cold out, it's windy out. They're on this scary ass ledge, and we see a lot of the sisters early on are able to be like, yeah, I'll easily pledge my life to the sisterhood, and they immediately walk off. So then we see that the few remaining are actually Valia, Kasha, and this other girl who is in their crew as well. So unsurprisingly, right, the two girls that run with Valia, right, the three girls that are kind of questioning Dorothea, they truly need to ask themselves whether they will put the sisterhood above everything else. And now it's raining, they're fucking freezing to death, and then finally both Kasha and Valia's other friend are like, okay, fine, I'll put sisterhood above all. So it's only Valia remaining. So in a way, Valia is being truthful, right? She is being truthful and saying, look, like, I don't know if I can commit to this cause. Like, I have something else that's very pressing going on in my life right now. And this pisses Dorothea off. Dorothea is just like, I'm not interested in a contest of wills. We both know the truth. She's like, you're a fucking Harkonnen. And then she just dips, and Valia is left alone just to cry. So what did you think about just that little truth pledge scene, as I'll call it?
We already know that Valia is dealing with quite a bit attached to her family. She can't move on because she still doesn't know if she wants to leave her family behind to rot away in their complacency and to admit defeat to the Atreides. It's not like she's saying, like, I love my family so much I can't bear not being with them all the time. It's her saying, like, I have scores to settle, if that makes sense. The line that you'll always be a Harkonnen, like, I'm kind of understanding why Valia did Dorothea so dirty in episode 1 now. There's a lot more being built up into Dorothea just being kind of a shitbag in general.
Yeah. She's kind of a bitch to her. Let's be real.
The way that they've built her character up to, like, the Butlerians, when they say that Dorothea went to like negotiate with them or to like make peace with them, the Butlerians were the group responsible for the idea of revolting against the machines from the get-go. So they hold on to some pretty archaic rules and rigid beliefs after the machines are overthrown. They're super against machines and complex devices. This explains like why Dorothea is so rigid and why she's trying to bring back the idea of like ultimate piousness and righteousness and lack of cunning and lack of patent to just hand the keys to Dorothea if she's been influenced in that way. Like, there's those heavy themes of family in this episode, and how do you come to be in a sisterhood? What makes you a sister? Just a place where you put somebody when you don't know what to do with them. Like, everyone's got a different backstory here, but they're all coming together for the concept of the sisterhood. And I think no one's doing any truth saying. I don't know. I do understand why Dorothea was making moves that were not really like super encouraging for her to be the sole reverend mother of the.
Is it a race?
I think it's a group of people, started as a group of people who were like super against the machines and had some of the core ideas to revolt against the machines with, which is fair because like we fought a revolutionary
It's like
war,
Elon Musk and
and the
AI.
sole idea, yeah, or like the Amish like beat Elon Musk, and then afterwards they're
Yeah.
like, hey, no more electricity. That's kind of what went down here, in a way, to put it in a sloppy analogy or
Okay, got it. So
metaphor.
it's not like a race of people, but it's there are people who are all agreeing to one like mode of thought, right?
I'm partially hazy on it, but I think it is a family. Like, it started from a family, but I think now it's a
Yeah,
belief.
and is Dorothea a Butlerian?
She went to live with
Okay,
them
got it.
for a minute, and I think they influenced her in a way that Raquella
Got it.
maybe
Got it.
was
Got it.
not
Cool.
intending
Also, side
for.
note, this is absolutely just straight tequila that I'm sipping. So if I start getting hazy as this stream goes on or start saying some
Amen.
ridiculous shit, just don't hold it against me. All right. So it is what it is. All right.
It
So
is what it
next
is.
scene. Let me check. Let me check me notes. Okay. Cool. So this is when Raquella first meets. I think she first meets Tula or no Valia, right? So we see Raquella arrive just looking like a G when it's still raining, and she goes outside, and Valia is still outside. So Valia has been outside, man, maybe for a full day, right? Like a full 24 hours, it looks like. And Raquella pulls up, and Valia is about to move, and then Raquella demonstrates the voice and tells her, "Don't move." And Valia is, or no, sorry, that's a lie. Um, I think Valia is the one who uses the voice on Raquella, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
it's Raquella's like, what the fuck? And but Raquella's she's pleased. She's pleased to see that this young acolyte is so fucking powerful. So she tells Valia, look, I'm Raquella Berto Anaral, I'm the mother superior. Let's go inside. And Valia says, look, I haven't taken my vow of sisterhood above everything. And Raquella does not care. She goes, I'm inviting you inside. Let's rock. So they go inside, and Raquella mentions, "Hey, that whole voice thing. What's up with that? You know, like how did you know how to do that?" And Valia says, "Look, one time I used it on Griffin, my brother, when he was drowning. I ordered him to swim when his muscles froze up and couldn't, and that's the only other time she's demonstrated the voice. So she's only used it, according to Valia, twice, right? At this point, and." Raquel is unfazed. She's like, yeah, sometimes desperate times, desperate situations, that's when you discover these new abilities. The human race is still evolving. And as the Sisterhood, we're working to advance our species. And we found that adversity is the key to change. So Raquel is like, I have also done research on you. I know what's happened to your brother. I lost my husband in the machine wars, and I've never been the same since. And yeah, Raquel is basically like, we've both lost people and we can bond together via pain. But if you take our teachings here seriously, then you can be a powerful and impactful motherfucker and shape the course of the Imperium if you decide to stay. So Raquel is basically selling her on the classic, like, you're a prodigy, right? Like, you're a straight prodigy. And if you stay here, you're going to be unstoppable and you're going to basically decide the fate of humanity, right? So I'm going to pause there. Thoughts on all of that?
Well, and I like that in that promise to her, there's a sure in the hard times to build a diamond. It's the idea that we know you've been through some stuff. We can turn all of that into like a superpower for you, and we can use it to put fuel on the fire. You can go from ins where they're ranked right now. Like, if this is a conference, like, let's say we're ranking the teams like 1 to 20, the Harkonnens are buried in the basement right now. If you go with us, and if you are,
Yep. Oh, my legs. Yeah, good call there. It is. Raquel knows what is bothering Valia, and she's using it to her advantage. All right, then we cut. We're still in flashback mode right now. So while Valia is undergoing all the shit that she's going through, at Wallach 9, we see Tula. Um, the night of the feast is here, and all of Ori's family is out kind of celebrating, getting ready for this feast, and they're preparing and they're chefing up and drinking and stuff like that. And Tula goes inside and finds Ori. He's still just sad. He's sad about his horse dying and stuff like that. And Valia comforts him, and Ori has a question. Ori's like, "How did you know how to humanely kill my horse instead of me just slitting its throat?" And Tula says, "Look, I had a brother. He taught me how to handle animals. Taught me a lot of things." And Ori's like, "Can I meet him?" And she goes, "Yeah, he's dead, so you can't meet him. But I wish you could." Right. So that's kind of that. And then Ori kind of gets close to Tula and is like, "Yeah, you don't talk about your family much." And Tula lies and says, my older sister never cared much for me. After he died, she went off to school. Now, maybe this isn't a lie. Maybe Valia doesn't care that much about Tula. So maybe this was a moment where Tula was being honest with how she actually feels about Valia, or maybe how she actually thinks that Valia feels about her. So she tells Ori, "Look, after my brother died, my parents were grief-stricken. They basically sent Valia to study with the Sisterhood. They forgot about me, so I had to leave home just to be seen." So we know for a fact that she's not on her home planet of Lankerville. She's on a new planet. We still don't know what this new planet is. And Ori is just basically like, "I see you, and once we get married, we're going to have more family, and we're going to be good." And that leads to Ori proposing to her. And Valia doesn't explicitly accept the proposal. She just starts making out with him. And then we get this montage where they're having sex, and we see this feast going down outside. I'm going to skip through. I don't think they show nudity, but yeah. So then the morning after, Tula wakes up early and she tries to kind of sneak off, and Ori is awake and talks to her. "Hey, my family's going to be pumped when they find out that you've accepted my marriage proposal." And Tula is so guilty, bro. And she just tells Ori, "Look, dude, speaking of Ori's, this Ori kid, man, he's been fucking lifting the weights. He's just kind of flexing in front of Tula." And Tula's like, "Look, I'm guilty. I got to come clean. I lied to you. My family, we're Harkonnens. And we're supposed to be mortal enemies with your family. So this is the first time we find out that Ori's family are the Atreides." So she is on the Atreides planet. Do you know what the Atreides planet is called? It's the same planet, right?
So they are on, I believe it's Caladan right now. That's where, if you watch the first Dune movie, that's where they start out before
now,
they
Ori's
fly
such
to
a good
Arrakis.
dude because he's like, "Yeah, I don't give a fuck if you're a Harkonnen. This is some Romeo Juliet shit, right?" Where he's like, "Our families are the ones who are choosing hate off of some bullshit from generations ago. I don't care. No one chooses the name they're born with. Like, we'll figure it out. Nothing could make me not love you." Right? Oh man, brutal.
He's saying all the right things.
He means it, but Tula is a cold ass bitch, and she tells him, "Look, you didn't see me, and I had to do what I had to do. Essentially, like, we do what we must." And Ori then finally realizes, "Oh my god, it's really quiet." He walks outside and he sees that all of his family has been poisoned and murdered by Tula. So while they were having sex, Ori was spared because he didn't, eat whatever the fuck they all ate, which had poison in it. So his family's all dead, and then that's when Tula pulls up and stabs him with some of that poison from the bull and kills her lover, and she apologizes, but duty above all. So even though she genuinely cared about Ori, the duty and the vengeance mission that she's been sworn to takes precedence. And then we see, what's his name? Arnold, or what'd you say? The young kid?
Albert.
Arnold. Albert somehow has avoided this whole thing, right? Was he sick or something? Or is he just not involved in the feast?
I think he wasn't involved. To me, I watched the feast and I was like, why the hell are they showing this bro down in the middle of like their intimate scene there? Yeah, but then it made more sense when you see the Atreides symbolizes the idea of like look at the great time the Atreides family is having after the legacy of what went down during the revolution versus probably what the Harkonnen guys are out there, man. It's pretty damn cold. So I thought that was a cool way to splice it in terms of like these are the difference in how the families are standing and how triumphant one appears. It's quite
Yep. So he's spared, and Tula just tells him just go away. So he runs off, which is going to be interesting because I wonder where the fuck he's at in present day, right? But either way, as Tula is holding Ori's dead body in her arms, we see the Atreides bull right pull up, and she eyes the bull, and the bull just kind of walks off. So thoughts on all of that before I jump to this next scene?
I did not realize that Tula had it in her. I didn't know that she had that kind of thing to withhold. I'm like, well, why did she wait until now to tell him? But now it totally makes sense. I'm a little shocked that a holiday he's been bringing around for a little while.
Yeah, pussy power, bro.
It's like, oh, we
Pussy
just,
power.
it's like no one's even looked into her yet. But there's a theme of loyalty to one's family that comes up again here in a convo right before Tula reveals everything too. As like, like you're pretty much you're an Atreides now, like you're one of us. Where it's like Tula would have to marry in and basically forsake her family, cast aside her history, leave her family if she's officially quote unquote married up, and the Harkonnens have admitted defeat ultimately and are forever just going to be like little bro to the Atreides clan no matter what goes down.
A shittier team in the conference transfers, right? Hits the transfer portal and goes to the top team in the conference.
Yes, it was just like that. And I think the Romeo and Juliet thing was spun aside, but the poison is definitely still involved there. I like that comparison you made. The bull coming back around is a cool symbol too, because in the modern Dune movie adaptations, Paul's Grady's family in the present, as we know in the Dune universe, to have the bull there as well. So it's like a recurring symbol in a sense, which I think is cool. Also, just a symbol of strength, like the Harkonnens.
Yep. All right. Now we jump back to Wallach 9, and Raquella has now been spending a lot of time with Valia, young Valia, and these two are just in lockstep with whatever their strategies are, right? Like they're both just like brutal. Hey, we got to use power manipulation to figure out what we're doing next. So we kind of see this little conversation between Raquella and Valia. It's clear that Raquella has taken Valia under her wing, and she tells Valia, look, the houses are now competing for members of our sisterhood, right? They all want their own truthsayer. It's getting very competitive. We're gaining power. That's basically what she is telling Valia. And Valia's like, good shit. And as they're walking through and having their own like kind of plotting conversation, which is so wild because Raquella is running this whole thing, and her granddaughter, right? Is it great granddaughter or granddaughter for Dorothea? Granddaughter. Dorothea, meanwhile, is preaching to the rest of the other sisters about like, thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind, like basically preaching, like you said, piety and all this stuff. And Raquel is just like, yeah, motherfucker, we're in an arms race right now. Like we got to gain more power. So Raquel then tells Valia, yeah, let's go to the tunnels. I gotta show you something real quick. So they pull up to these tunnels, and Raquel shows Valia the genetic library that they've been building and mapping out. And it relies, what I'm about to show you relies on forbidden technology. So they are running, they basically have a computer down here, right? Is that fair enough? Like they got NVIDIA chips and shit like that running down here. And so she's about to show her some shit. And then later that night, we see, obviously, if you got a secret, man, you gotta tell your homies, right? If you got a secret, you gotta tell your homies. And Valia tells Kasha and then her other friend about what's going on, and she tells them like, look, Raquella says that I'm gonna be her successor. And they're like, well, did she actually tell you? She goes, nope, but it's clear that that's what she wants, and she trusts me more than Dorothea. And Kasha asks her, look, do you feel ready? And she goes, I don't really know. And then Valia demonstrates the voice, and she actually makes Kasha slap this other girl. And I thought at this point they would be like, oh my god, you're too powerful, like you're so fucking scary. But instead, they're like, holy shit, that's so sick.
Nope.
Yeah, they like, teach me how to do
Please
that.
teach
like, oh
me.
my god, that's so crazy. So all of these girls are locked in on what it is. Like they're all just classic Slytherin, right? And then they're like, can you teach us how to do it? She's like, I was hoping that you'd ask. And Raquel is looking on and being like, good. I'm gonna pause there. Thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, man. There was something so hilarious about Raquel preaching anti-machines, and then Dorothea preaching with Thalia. Yeah, my granddaughter's kind of a narc. I don't know. She wouldn't be cool with this, but I trust you. You seem cool. So you can also see why she's preaching is kind of kooky. If you want to have any hold on the power of the universe, if you want to actually make a dent in the Imperium, if you want to be a player at the table, like subjugate yourself to being like more of like a nun type figure, which I think is what Dorothea was going for anyway. But there's huge importance in the breeding program to maintain stability. Raquel, on the flip side, is also like the maternal figure that Valia's been looking for. Like, clearly her own mom never understood her or gave a shit once she had prejudged her. So now we have Lee because Valia is feeling more at home here. She's finding a place here. The voice thing seemed like a blessing and a curse. To tell you the truth, like it would be super insane and threatening to hear somebody. It's like, oh, okay, it's just the voice. But when it's the first time you're seeing it done, it's like that's actually witch. Like we can't be having that. So it was cool to see the friends rally.
I thought they were going to be terrified. And a good point that I forgot to mention is that when Raquel shows Valia the genetic mapping that they've been doing, she says, look, the whole point of this is we're gonna basically determine who the next rulers of the Imperium are, and we want to kind of breed rulers that aren't prone to be tyrants, right? They're less prone to corruption, stuff like that. But it is a little bit ironic, right? Because the sisterhood itself is pretty corrupt right now. Okay, let's jump ahead. So then we see Raquella, and she has called over her two best and brightest, which is her granddaughter Dorothea, and then young Valia, and the rest of the sisterhood is all watching from above. And Raquella basically tells them, look, I'm going to die soon. You guys have to take over, and you're the future leaders of this order. And both of you are charismatic, and I've seen you guys amass followers. So both of you have shown the ability to lead, and despite our sisterhood being young, we're growing in power. So it's time for both of you guys to undergo the agony. So as they get ready to kneel and undergo the agony in order to actually turn into Reverend Mothers, right? Valia pulls a last second dip out move, and she just walks out. And Raquella knows exactly what this all is. So as Valia is kind of just hanging out by herself, she's not happy. Kasha's like, look, Mother Raquella wants to see you. And Raquella calls Valia in, and the conversation they have is fairly simple and to the point. Raquella essentially just tells her, look, I know that right now you still value whatever the fuck revenge tour you're on for House Harkonnen over the Sisterhood. And because of that, you can leave today. If you're not fully bought in, get the fuck out. But you got to pick a side. Either you're fully bought into the Sisterhood, or you're going to go carry out your revenge mission and really have more loyalty to the Harkonnen name over the Sisterhood. But Pick one. I can't afford to be patient. I don't have much time. I'm going to die soon. Do what you got to do. But she does hand, right, before Volya leaves, because Volya's like, look, I need to go back to my home planet. But before Volya leaves, Raquella does hand her some of that poison and says, either way, right, you got two options. Either you never come back, or you come back and you come back a Reverend Mother, meaning that you have undertaken the agony by yourself. And that is what she leaves Volya with. And as Volya catches the next flight back to her home planet, we see that the members of Dorothea's little following, right, they all look at her with fucking disgust and they start calling her a coward for not being able to go through it, all of these things. So I'm going to pause there before Volya returns.
The idea of having to do the agony is horrifying, right? This is like a high grade hallucinogen where you're guaranteed to make contact with setted trauma and that as well. So basically just saying like, yeah, I need you to go do this on your icy hellhole of a home planet where all of your trauma resides is it's much harder than it would have been. Just to think Valia needs that to be able to like conquer her demons and what she left behind, because she's not the type to just take off. She still wants to make good on it. And this coming on the heels of how there's the idea that like there's something cooking between these two sisters, and it's an awful funny coincidence that she would feel the need to go home right when this news breaks. So I think it must have killed Dorothea to hear Raquella giving Valia equal praise to her. She must have just been seething the whole time. She even had that little passive aggressive, like fake nice, like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Great call on that. Give us the strength to return and serve as brethren mothers.
Because we both love you equally, and we're both equally deserving of this for sure. But this is similar to what Jessica went through to become Reverend Mother of the Fremen, and it can really mess you up. So we'll see what goes down.
Yeah. Also, good call on Volya's tone changing simply because she had gotten the message from Tula, basically saying Tula's message was what? I'm trying to find it. It was it said the Suet has been enjoyed by all. No more courses to serve. And Raquella's smart as fuck, so she knows right away. Hey, your sister has sent you a confirmation of some kind. She knows that her sister has murdered somebody, right? So this is the confirmation to get Volya to return. So Volya does return to her planet of Lankoville, and we see that everyone's kind of, still struggling there. It's very, very cold, and as she returns home, she is not welcome. Her family does not really want to see her, and Tula is there, and Tula confirms that, yes, I have murdered Ori Atreides, and they all are. So she's killed. She hasn't killed all of the Atreides, right? But she's killed the family that's in charge, right?
She's killed the key players, basically.
So the rest of her Harkonnen family, they know about this, so they're fucking pissed at her for doing this, and Volya is actually surprised. Volya's like, I didn't think you could actually do that shit, and Tula goes, neither did I, and Volya then says, Griffin will be proud, and Tula questions that. She questions if he would actually be proud that she just murdered so many fucking people. So then we see at the dinner table, Volya's mom is fucking so pissed because they know that Volya is the one that influenced Tula to commit all of these heinous acts of revenge. But Tula keeps insisting, nope, it was my choice, it was my choice, it was my choice. It wasn't because Volya told me to do that. And then Volya's dad tells her, you shouldn't have come back, you've done enough. So her family is basically disowning her. They view her as a hateful girl. And then her uncle is fucking pissed because he goes, look, how do you think a massacre like that is going to affect us? It's going to fuck all of us over. You just did something so heinous, right? And Volya doesn't care. Volya goes, look, we're fighting back against the family that has punished ours. They're the ones responsible for killing Griffin. Why are we being cowards? We're showing them that the Harkonnens aren't just going to lie down and roll over, right? So why are you guys mad at me? And who gives a fuck if they're coming after us? We should be at war with them anyways. That's essentially what her stance is. And this argument erupts when Valya's mom says, "You've already cost us one child." So Valya's mom is blaming Valya for the death of Griffin, and that is when Valya breaks out the voice. This was a crazy scene. She tells her mom to basically shut the fuck up, and her mom shuts up, and everyone is just scared, like, what the hell is going on? And then she tells her mom, pick up the knife, and her mom has to pick up the knife. Oh my God, I thought that Valya was going to command her mom to kill herself, but then I remember thinking there's no way Tula would still be loyal to her if she actually killed her mom. So she walks out, and basically that was just a threat to her family, like, I could kill all of you guys. And this is the first time they've witnessed her display the voice, and her uncle calls her a piece of shit sorceress as she storms out. And then when Valya storms out, well, fuck it, my family hates me. I'm basically cutting ties with all of them other than Tula. What better time than now to undergo the agony, right? So she pulls out the you might as well, right? Like, when times are tough, just fuck it. Just chug a few shots and let's just get this shit over with. So she drops the poison in her eyes and she undergoes the agony. We don't really see what her experience is like. She's supposed to communicate with her ancestors and stuff. We don't see the nitty gritty. We don't know what her journey is like. All we see is Tula find Valya, and Valya survives the agony, and her takeaway is basically, I'm the fucking shit because I survived the agony. I'm powerful as fuck, and I'm heading back to Wallach 9. And Tula tells Valya, well, I'm coming with you to Wallach 9. It's time. I'm not losing you. I've already lost Griffin. I'm not losing you. And the sisterhood will be a fresh start for us. So I want to pause there.
Yeah, the closing line, what did she say again? We have a new purpose now. Like, fresh off of a strong trip, she just comes out with that, and like her eyes are locked in. So when you undergo the agony, you basically live 1,000 lives, but get to maintain your physical body, but you carry on the memories and the knowledge of so many people, which is super overwhelming. Look at what happened to Paul. Look at what happened to Jessica. Woman's brain inside of a young girl, which is why she's so, like, kind of odd and off-putting in the books and even in the movie from what we saw. So this is some serious stuff that you really can't emerge the same from after, between both of these scenes and what we see in the present too. The move against her mother, right, reminded me a lot of the move that she took against Dorothea with the voice, where she actually had her slit her throat. So I thought this was like full love, but still, you can't ignore like the parallels on that one. Tula is visibly scarred, and Tula is along for the ride here. But she's not totally innocent, right? I don't believe that they confirmed that Tula, thinking that she was contributing in a misguided way to avenging their brother, who they both loved, right? Where Valley's ambition and her rage that the mom calls out is sort of setting fire out. It shows us that the second time that Tula had to do this is with Lila in the present, where somebody who she loves has passed out from this agony procedure, and she's waiting for somebody to come back to. So I think this, especially given with how the episode closes, which you'll get into in a bit, connects pretty strongly to Tula being like the second in command, like always in the passenger seat during these huge moments of the agony being taken.
Yes. So now we jump to let me see what the next scene is. So the sisters decide they're going back to Wallach 9. Yep, we jump to present day, and Tula is now making the decision to basically put Lila out of her misery, right? So the ritual involves all of the sisters coming in and basically just saying one last goodbye. Now, as this is going on, Jen actually speaks out and basically calls Tula out and says, look, you manipulated her. You knew Lila, wanted to find out where she came from, so she was down to do all of this. And actually, Sister Avia is the one who says, look, This order is founded on sacrifice. There's been girls younger than Lila who have sacrificed. It's what we do. And just shuts down Jen immediately. So then all the sisters say their goodbyes to Lila. And we see Tula. She's very, very upset. So they all one by one touch Lila and then say goodbye. And there's these devices that are keeping her alive. I don't necessarily know what these devices are, but they're just certain things that are just kind of keeping her alive. And then we see Tula. She removes the last two, but she's the only one remaining with Lila's body. So it's obviously a situation that's really, really could really lead to some fuckery, right? I'm just gonna put it that way. Like no one's like checking to make sure that Tula is gonna put Lila down. Then we cut to I think this is this Wallach or no? This is Seleucus Secundus, right? So I think we cut back to Seleucus Secundus, and this is Valia and Theodosia, and they're kind of just they're kind of figuring out their next moves. And Theodosia is like, well, who are we meeting, right? And Valia says sacrifices must be made, sisterhood above all. Or actually, no, sorry, I lied. They're not at Seleucus Secundus. They revived at the planet of the Harkonnens, right? Or tell me, Damon, are they meeting with Baron Harkonnen right now at Seleucus Secundus, or have they traveled to the home planet of or the new planet of the Harkonnens? This I didn't really know.
Yeah, so I think that they're still on
Seleucus.
I think so, Seleucus Secundus. I don't because like unless that they got Getty Prime back that quickly, that's the only other way that it could go down. But I that was kind of unclear to me as well.
Okay, so let's assume, and if anyone's in the chat or you're
Yeah,
watching
please
the
correct
replay,
us if we're wrong.
yeah, exactly, definitely correct us. But let's just assume they're still on Seleucus Secundus, and the great houses have like their representatives just on that planet, right? Because like you said, this is basically Washington D.C. of the Imperium. So earlier this season, we saw Baron Harkonnen trying to pitch fucking whale fur to Carino, and now we see that that Valia has returned to talk to Baron Harkonnen, and Baron greets Valia as Aunt Valia, and then we see this old man who is clearly the leader of the Harkonnen house. We don't know his name, right?
Who is this?
The old guy who looks to be the leader of the Harkonnen house.
I think it's still her uncle Evgeny.
This is the same fucking guy? Okay.
I believe so.
Okay. So he's kind of just like, all right, like look who's back. And this will be interesting. Then we cut back to Tula, and we see Sister Avia pull up, and it's just like, yeah, you know, I know it must have been really hard to put Lila down. Like, you did the right thing. Mother Valia would be proud. And Tula's like, yeah, definitely. Yeah, cool, whatever.
For sure.
She's like, yeah, for sure. Yeah. My sister would be so proud. And then she kind of just walks off, and she goes into the same little hidden crypt room, right, where the technology's at. And we see that in this little underground chamber, now Raquella started this chamber, right? Raquella started this chamber, and Tula and Valia have carried on this tradition. We see that she is keeping Lila still alive. And they kind of have this like AI type of tool, right? Like AI type of machine. It's called Anarol, right? Run diagnostics. It's almost like Jarvis in Iron Man. And so this AI being called Anarol is running scans on Lila and saying her blood pressure is 91, pulse rates 140, like she's barely alive. And then Tula mentions, look, spice can rejuvenate the mind. We have to basically save her mind and save her consciousness. They're going to dose her with spice to try to revive her. And Anarol's like, look, this isn't an authorized request. Valia is the only one who can authorize this, and Tula just overrides it and says, yeah, you know, don't worry about that. Valia entrusted me with the key. Like, we're good. So Anarol then starts initiating the protocol to try to revive Lila. And Anarol was also like the hyphenated last name of Raquella, right? It was like Raquella something Anarol. So That's basically how the episode ends. I want to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, I think we knew that based on how Tula had handled everything previously, like she was going to take matters into her own hands on Lila, especially building up to how she was influenced into killing the Atreides clan or half of the crew that was there on Caledon by what Valia was influencing her with. Just like kind of like she's been in little sister mode the whole time. So it's about time that she rebelled and took something into her own hands and went off script on this one. What do you think Valia's reaction would actually be if she found out?
I think it would be totally dependent on how this ends up working out for them. Like,
Yes.
I think Valia at first would be fucking pissed that Tula disobeyed her, but I think if Lila being revived proves to have the answers, then she'd be like, okay, cool. Like I'll address this disobedience later, but we need to use this right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. She's all about the results. She's a results driven leader, if you will.
Yeah,
My notes
exactly.
here had putting Lila in an Austin Powers situation, but make it spice.
Yeah, that's a good fucking call. The spy who shagged me. Um, yeah, that's pretty much the episode. I think down the line this season we gotta get some scenes on what Valia actually went through when she did the agony, right? Like we gotta see
Hmm.
what the fuck her ancestors told her, because maybe we find out that that the Harkonnens did screw everyone over. Who knows, right? So
Yeah, it wasn't very reassuring that Uncle Evgeny looked very Harkonnen-like in his levitating chair and like the pale baldness he was rocking. It was very much like the Baron.
yeah, he was smoking from a little pipe, or no, maybe he was getting oxygen. I don't even know what that was, but yeah, no, he's levitating in a chair. It's just looking pretty fucking sketchy. But any final thoughts on this episode?
I think that it was a nice midpoint episode because this is a 6 episode season. I think that we've built up enough background information. The one thing that we're going to want to look at now is now we know that Raquella was pro machine. We knew that Dorothea is anti machine. If we can pinpoint what Desmond Hart is really up to, like if he is truly an anti machine crusader, he's more aligned with like the Butlerians. So maybe he has some allegiances there. We still don't know where the hell that dude came from. If he's Ixian, if he's just a Gola, whatever, wherever this ends up, we got to figure out what this guy's game is. Does he want to be rid of the machines in the sisterhood, or does he want to replace them purely with machines? I think the machine question came more into focus for me this time through.
Yep, yep. All right, yeah, we'll be back next Sunday night with episode 4. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. We will catch you guys later.
Take it easy, everyone.